Hey, this is Snowblitz.
Six String.
Starlight Ironhoof.
Forest Rain.
And Zeta Prime.
And this is Elements of Harmony.
Framed in gold.
Love is in blue, a beautiful bride, a handsome groom.
Octavia, why you still playing the cello so mellow? This is what it'll take to be alone. That's why they call me royalty.
Tonight on the show, we're featuring Sketchy Sounds, an acoustic artist specializing in show covers as well as a few originals. He has collaborated with Eiley Monty, Feather, and Dusty Katt, and hosts a show every Thursday on Everfree. And he joins us here tonight. So all the way from Scotland, we have Sketchy Sounds, who has been one of the most, enthusiastic potential guests that we've had. Would that be fair to say?
I think that would be a good way of putting it.
You've wanted to be on the show for a while, so are you a fan of the show, or?
To some extent. I mean, I try to catch it whenever I can. But I mean, the other thing was, I remember when you guys were starting up and said, "Oh, would you like to have me on sometime?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." And then you get never got back to me. I was like,
"Yeah,
okay, no, they must have forgotten or something." So I just kept pestering you and pestering and pestering you.
Yeah, we kind of took a rocket ship to the future and haven't really. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is we told 50 people, I think, yeah, you could be on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, come on the show.
And that's a year's worth of musicians right there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically that. I mean, we have a huge list. We're always busy with so many musicians.
We do. You
guys make us sound so exclusive. We're not really that cool, guys. Come on.
No, we're not. We like to feature musicians from all parts of the fandom. But,
we do.
In that vein, hello, Sketchy Sounds. How are you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too badly.
It is very late for you, I know.
Yeah, it's 1:15 in the morning here, and I'm keeping myself caffeinated so I don't go to pieces on you guys. It doesn't help that I only had 5 hours of sleep last night, so if I start sounding like a zombie, do forgive me.
Oh, fun.
We'll fix it in the post-production.
Yeah.
No, we won't.
We'll just put the sleeping Zeta icon over you. It'll be okay. But yes, so for people that don't know who you are, please tell us, who is Sketchy Sounds?
Oh, I've never met the guy. No. I suppose you could best describe me as part of the furniture of EFN. That wouldn't be too far wrong to say that. Basically, I've been involved with the guys at Everfree to a greater or lesser extent since before Everfree even existed. I mean, back when it was first Everfree Radio, when they first started up, I was the first guy they interviewed. Because they're like, oh, this is a guy who we have immediate access to. He's doing this music thing every so often. Because I had started regularly streaming my performing stuff from the show and stuff other people had done, even before Everfree started up. And then, because I was friends with One Trick, she was like, oh, would you like to come on and we'll interview you? And I was like, yeah, sure. If you go back to the very, very first podcast Everfree Radio ever put out, then I'm the guest that they have on that. But yeah, since then, Everfree obviously has become something far, far bigger than it was back then. I've stayed involved with them, and it was not long after they'd started to become, more prominent that, again, I think it was One Trick that approached me and said, look, how would you like to bring this show that you're doing, your regular stream where you do songs and stuff, how would you like to bring that onto Everfree and run it as one of our shows? Because that way, you'll have a more regular audience and more immediate access to a larger number of people. And I was like, yeah, okay. And yeah, I've been involved ever since. I'm certainly by no means one of the best known people in the community, but I've certainly, I would say that what I've been doing is definitely one of the longest running things, and I have fun doing it.
So it's almost like Cyril, in that Cyril's had issues with trying to gain subscribers on YouTube and stuff like that, but like anybody who's in the know knows who Cyril is.
Yeah, one of those things. I mean, yeah, I honestly would say that. I mean, there's a weird, what's the word? Discrepancy between the number of people that I have that follow me on Twitter and the number of people I have that are like subscribed to me on YouTube or following me on SoundCloud. Because I've got like over 1,000 followers on Twitter, but barely 200 or 300 subscribers on YouTube. And not very many followers on SoundCloud. It's a weird thing. But I suppose part of the other reason why I have a bit of a problem with that is that I have spread myself out quite a bit, because I don't actually just do music. I also do other things besides. I write and I do art. And so I'm doing all these different things. And I think part of the reason why I'm maybe not as well known as some of the other more prominent artists out there, well, prominent musicians out there, I should say, is probably because I'm doing an awful lot in a lot of areas, so there's maybe not an awful lot gets put into any one area to really draw that much attention.
Well, we actually talked about that last week with musicians who do more than just music, in terms of writing fan fiction or doing art, animating music videos. Like Sliftstorm, he does animation. And one of the things that we took away from that is when people follow your other works and your music, it kind of gives them context for where your music's coming from.
And don't forget Desi with the one who's doing all our
I don't want to steal the show and list everyone. That's a long list. But what do you think about that? Do you feel like the people that follow all your works get much more out of your music?
Not necessarily. I mean, odd as it is, my music isn't always related to my other works, although I certainly have had plans to perhaps change that. I would like to write some songs sometime based on stuff I do. Oh, no, actually, I tell a lie. Sorry, no. I have...
a lie?
Yeah, I know. Shocking, isn't it?
No!
I do actually have one song that I've written and that I've got in the works, which is actually related to one of my written works, or rather, you definitely get more out of it if you'd read that particular written work, because it's based off some of the events that happen in that one. So yeah, there is some correlation between the two.
Is that publicly available right now?
No, it's not. Although I have performed it a few times, it's still needs some rough edges worked off it.
Okay. So for those looking for it, they can tune into your show, but what's it called?
It's simply called Tavia.
Tavia.
No prizes for guessing who the subject is.
It's clearly about vinyl scratch, right?
No.
Get
Lying
out.
on heartstrings.
Just get out.
I was going to say
Bonbon?
Spike.
Oh, God. 6, you're fired.
I know. Oh, man.
Well, now we need a new replacement.
A new replacement.
Anyway,
So when you get the new
Will
person-
be known.
So when you get replacement on, you'll be like, congratulations, you're the new 6.
Yeah.
well, while we're sidetracked, so if we fire Forrest, is he burned?
What?
What?
I don't get it. Anyway, so
Only you
Forrest
can
burned.
stop forest fires.
how long have you been producing music?
Ages. I think I would say I've been producing music since well before the Brony fandom was ever a thing. Because here's a bit of shameful past. I used to be a lot more involved in the Sonic fandom, right? And I produced some music that was related to that. It was basically just remixes of music from the games and stuff. It also wasn't acoustic stuff. It was actually more electronic stuff, and I actually have some of that still kicking about somewhere.
Oh,
So-
really?
Yeah, actually, if you went and looked on my SoundCloud, you'll find it there, and you might be surprised at the fact that it's electronic instead of acoustic. It's very different from the kind of thing I do these days. But yeah, I've been dabbling with music production since probably the late 90s or early 2000s, and I've used a number of different bits of software: FL Studio, School of Buzz, Reaper. Had a muck about with Ableton. So yeah, I've certainly dabbled quite a lot.
So while we're on the topic of recording, we have our own personal favorite brands for audio interfaces. What do you use for interfacing?
I currently am the proud owner of a Focusrite Scarlett 86.
Good! Focusrite! We need to have a counter for this. Why don't we have a counter for this already?
We can finally get our sponsorship from Focusrite back.
Yeah.
It's a long-running joke with this show that pretty much every guest uses Focusrite. Yeah.
And every host,
yeah, but we
basically.
just had like 3 people in a row, I think, that don't.
Yeah, that's true. We've had a few people recently who haven't, but...
We say Focusrite and Mini Fridge a lot. You don't think we get, sponsored by
Yeah,
them?
every time we say Focusrite, we get $1. So Focusrite, Focusrite!
Focusrite's
Yeah,
a brand.
no.
A mini fridge is a noun, so I don't think we could get.
Yeah, we don't get money for Mini Fridge.
Sponsored by a noun.
No.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me. Out of the interfaces I've owned, again, I've owned a few different interfaces and a few different things. When I started out doing the Songcast, actually, I didn't have a proper audio interface. What I had was a rather crappy little USB condenser mic, and it was absolutely awful.
Yeah.
But I then went on from that to get a Alesis IO2 Express, which had its good points and its bad points. Its good points were that it was cheap and that it did the job, and it did the job fairly well most of the time. However, its bad points were that it didn't have a dedicated driver. You had to use ASIO for all, and when it failed horribly and would give you heart attack-inducing bursts of static.
I've heard a lot of stories about ASIO for all.
I've experienced that with an old amp, actually.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's nothing really wrong with ASIO for all, because ASIO for all never did that with any of the other audio interfaces I've used with it. It was only that Alesis one. Every so often it would just suddenly go, and and it started doing it. It started doing it in the middle of my show. And my audience can attest to this. I would suddenly stop in the middle of a song looking like I was about to have a heart attack. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, folks, my interface has just, exploded into static again and scared the living hell out of me.
It became self-aware and started fighting back.
Did it get piped through to your viewers at all, or?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I
good.
think it only hurt me, but sometimes... the Songcast has been littered with its technical problems in the past, though, because one of the other things I had when I was using ASIO for all was that I was a bit of a noob when it came to using it to some extent, and long story short, there was a thing on it where I accidentally had both an input and an output on a virtual audio cable, because that was another thing I was using, and it ended up making loads and loads of crackling at the viewer end. The worst thing was, I couldn't hear this. So people would be going, "Oh, it's crackling like mad," and I'd be like, "What? What do you mean it's crackling?
What are you talking about?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about our equipment, I thought I'd ask, what instruments do you use in your music? As we're led to believe, you have a keyboard, you have electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, and a mandolin.
I have lots.
Oh, good.
This is the thing. Related to this, actually, it's a dream of mine to someday have a music room just filled top to bottom with various instruments. I would love to have that one day, because I'm one of these people who lots of people tend to hate. I'm one of those people where, if you put an instrument in my hands and give me a few minutes, I'll probably be getting a tune out of it. But currently I've got an acoustic guitar, a half-size Spanish guitar, electric guitar, a banjo, 2 mandolins, a bass guitar, a contrabass, a keyboard,
Right.
2 different kinds of folk flute, 3 ocarinas, a chromatic harmonica, and also a set of blues harmonicas. And there's probably stuff I'm forgetting as well.
So, did I hear contrabass in that?
Yeah.
Yes, there is, sitting behind me right now, leaned against a wall, is an instrument case which is taller than me, and I'm 6.5 feet tall.
I have to say that contrabass, in my opinion, is the most underrated musical instrument for chamber winds.
It is a lovely instrument to play. I've only recently gotten it. I got it when I was when I had a job recently, which sadly ended not too long ago. But I got that as kind of like, it was like, okay, first paycheck of new job, I'm going to reward myself. So I got one of those, and I've been practicing it, and it's a lovely sound. But dear God, it kills you to play it.
Can we just explain real quickly what a contrabass is?
It's also known as a double bass. Basically, it's the kind of bass. It looks a bit like a cello, but it's a lot bigger.
It's huge. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
one
it's
of
the
those
one
big
It's really
stand-up
gigantic.
bass.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the
okay.
one you play with a bow.
Yeah.
I think. Never mind. I was thinking of a contrabass clarinet.
Ah.
Ah, no.
Yeah, I was wondering what you were
No.
saying when you said.
Yeah, I was just
woodwinds.
thinking about with woodwinds. I'm like, wait a minute. Do I not know orchestral instruments as well as I think I
Yeah,
do?
it was.
Yeah.
I knew 2 people that played contrabass clarinet, and they always
Oh,
just
the
called it
contrabass.
contrabass.
Yeah. See, this is the
Yeah.
thing, though, is so I've found with some people, if I say double bass, they're like, what?
Yeah,
but
no. So
the-
once you said double bass, I was like, that is not a woodwind instrument.
Yeah,
What is Tim
exactly.
talking about?
Yeah. Which is why I'm like, okay, let's just explain this real quick. Let's find out. All right.
Yeah.
It's made. It was close. It's made of wood, but it's not a wind instrument.
So, Sketch, what was your first instrument that you picked up?
That was the guitar. That was when I was 6 years old as well.
Oh wow.
See, thing is, my dad is a keen guitarist, and one of the things he did when I was young, when me and my brothers were young, he got like a Spanish guitar, just a classical guitar,
Yeah.
so that
nylon
if we
string.
wanted to learn, if me and my brothers wanted to learn, then we had something we could learn on. And he taught me a bit, and I took lessons when I was in primary school, and it was just something that I pretty much fell in love with once I learned how to play, and I've played it ever since. I've always had a love for it, and it's something, if I feel a need to make some music, then that's usually the instrument I'll go for.
And I have to ask, just going back to the whole contrabass thing, since this is a supposedly debatable thing within the fandom.
Within the fandom, it's within our show.
No, it's no, not that.
Oh,
You're not paying
never
attention to
mind.
the host chat.
Never mind.
Get out of here. I fired you at the beginning of the show.
Yes, sir.
With
Bye, 6.
go back to Mormon summer camp.
Never.
That's like the second time that's happened.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. But
Forrest,
I'm just gonna ask the
You're
question
totally
now.
not sorry.
Boris, I'm going to steal your question. No, what do you think about the cello versus contrabass? Like, which one do you
regarding
guys
what?
in-
6?
as in-
regarding what?
Octavia? Like, do you
Yeah,
think
you don't
she's
even know what the
playing
question
a
is, do
double
you?
bass or a cello? Maybe not. Shush.
Okay, well, if that is the question you're asking, my
Yes.
answer is it was already settled in season 2, I believe. Remember Sweet and Elite?
Yeah.
Where there was the garden party, and we saw Octavia on stage with a few other ponies playing her debatable instrument.
Aye.
Well, the question was raised to Stephen Andrews, I think it was Will Anderson, one of the two, the ones who are responsible for all the background music. Somebody asked, what is that tune they're playing? What's the arrangement for that? His answer was, it was either a traditional classical piece or it was only put together. But the important bit was when he mentioned the arrangement, he said it was for, I can't remember what other stringed instruments he mentioned, but he specifically mentioned it was either 1 or 2 cellos. There was no mention of bass at all.
cello.
Now, I may not be an expert on chamber instruments, but I can say from direct experience, it's very, very, very difficult to play music meant for cello on a bass.
It is. They are
Yeah.
completely different tunes.
And some people
yeah.
say that since she has the treble clef as a cutie mark, but cellos can use the treble clef.
They can. Most instruments can use a treble clef if you really try it.
Yeah.
Well, just takes a lot of ledger lines.
A lot of ledger lines.
There's plenty of cello music that is written with treble clefs. So.
Well, interesting thing about that, I mean, I don't know how many people there are in here that know an awful lot about sheet music, but there's a number of instruments that are transposing instruments, which basically means the music might be written with a treble clef at the start of it, but then there'll also be a number written on there to mention how many steps it's actually been transposed, or how many steps you need to transpose to play it in its actual key. Mm-hmm. This is often done for orchestral music where there's going to be a lot of ledger lines. Rather than, write out all the different clefs, they'll just use a bunch of treble clefs and give appropriate transposing instructions.
All right, we're going to step away for a little bit now while you guys are sitting there thinking about the contrabass and cello argument. And we're going to listen to a song by Sketchy Sounds called Wild Apple featuring Dusty Katt. And you are listening to this on Elements of Harmony, only on Everfree Network.
Meow.
I've been a wild apple for many a year, and I ventured away to a place far from here. But now I'm returning where you can be sure that I never will play the wild apple no more, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild apple. No, never, no more. I went to Manhattan, lit up by the moon, and I asked them if I could be just like that too. I stayed with my uncle and auntie for free, but I soon came to realize this just ain't for me, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild apple. No, never, no more. I looked out my window, saw a rainbow so bright, and my young fairy's eyes opened wide with delight. I packed up my things, bid my kinsfolk farewell, and I set off a-running back through hill and dale, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild apple. No, never, no more. Confessed how I fared, and asked her to pardon this prodigal mare. And as she has done so, as she done before, I never will play the wild apple no more, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild apple. No, never, no more, and it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more will I play the wild apple. No, never, no more.
was Wild Apple featuring Dusty Katt from Sketchy Sounds. So, Sketchy, this song actually does have some history behind it, is that correct?
A little bit. I mean, define what you mean by history.
Like, it's a ponification of a old Irish folk tune, correct?
Yes, it is. The original song is called The Wild Rover and is on much the same sort of topic as was sung about there. It's a song about someone who basically... It's almost like a prodigal son tale, because the subject of the song, goes off, presumably off to sea or whatever, engages in some perhaps irresponsible behaviour, but then finally comes back, returns to his hometown, and decides that he's returned for good and he's going to settle down. It struck me after seeing, what was it? The QG Mark Chronicles?
Mm-hmm.
Or it might have been another episode, but it struck me a while after I'd seen that. The thought suddenly came to me one day when I'd heard this song, and I was like, actually, this very much applies to Applejack, because she did the exact same thing. She saw something attractive. She was like, I want to go off and try this for a bit, and then she finally realized after a while, actually, where I belong is back home, on the farm. I should go back and I should, one, own up to being a bit irresponsible and going off and chasing a fancy that wasn't meant to be, and two, I should settle back down where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, I was like, that would work very well for her, so, let's give it a shot and see if it works.
It's definitely a cool rendition, I like that.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah, it is.
It was a lot of fun to do. The only thing that was difficult with that one was finding a voice different enough from mine for the lower parts of the vocals. I mean, I do actually have a fairly deep voice naturally, as you can hear.
Mm-hmm.
But for that particular song, I was like, I want to stay in the upper range, and I want to do the harmonies, because I knew I could do that. But I was like, I could really do with a deeper voice to do the lower part of it. So I got in touch with Dusty, and I was like, you sure you want me doing it? Because your voice is almost deeper than mine. And I was like, just trust me, man. I need a voice that sounds different enough for mine to fit in here.
Yeah, and it turned out...
I'd say it fits pretty well.
It turned out really well, too. And one of the things I have to ask about, too, is just the instrumentals in there. Like, it sounded like there was some kind of flute, which I'm assuming is actually an ocarina.
Yes, there were two woodwind instruments in there. There's an ocarina that came in fairly early, and there's also a tin whistle, traditional Irish instrument. That was the higher pitched and more shrill sounding instrument you heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could tell the first one was an ocarina, but the last one sounded way too metally.
I'd say that those are both actual instruments. That was me playing both of them.
Yeah. Just really quick, what kind of ocarina was that? Because I know there's like 6 billion different variations.
Yeah, that was the kind that's called a sweet potato. It's it's
Oh,
so
the
called because
little circle ones.
no, it's sort of longer. You know what the Ocarina of Time looks like?
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
Oh, that one. Okay.
That sort of shape. Yeah, it looks like that.
okay,
Except the holes are more logically arranged.
yeah. And I know.
Well, hey, now everyone listening will know what it looks like.
Well, and ocarinas are
Pretty much.
crazy. Like, there's like 6 holes, there's 4 hole, there's 12 hole, there's triple chambered, like 36 hole ocarinas that are crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there's
Yeah.
two general designs for them. There's your English style, which is those are the little ones
Yeah,
that have got like 4 or 6 holes.
yeah, little pendant ones.
And then there's
or
and then there's your sweet potato style, which is the one that perhaps more people are familiar with, which is the like larger sort of oblong shaped things.
Mhm.
You do also get there's one other one style that's fairly well known, is the traditional Peruvian sort of shape, which sort of looks rectangular and has they're usually made of wood. They have a more pipey sound to them.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly, the only people I know that own ocarinas have Peruvian or the English style.
Well, now I know someone who owns the sweet potato style.
Yay!
Yay! Cross that off my bucket list.
I've noticed with your songs you use a lot of interesting folk instruments, and I was just wondering in general, what has influenced your musical stylings in general?
Okay, it probably won't come as any surprise to hear that I've listened to an awful lot of Simon and Garfunkel.
Ah, yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I love their music. There's a lot of their tunes that I've listened to loads of times, and I love the way they do things. I mean, here's the thing, actually, one of the songs I did a wee while back, there was a song I actually covered twice on two different subjects, simply because both ideas, I didn't want to give them up. You're familiar, I expect, with the song The Times They Are A-Changing, which was originally written by Bob Dylan, and then Simon and Garfunkel did a cover.
Mm-hmm.
I did a cover of that. I did two covers of that, actually. One was Hearthstorming Change was one version, which was related to the Hearthstorming episode, obviously. The other one, which I was simultaneously ashamed of and really proud of myself for the title, was The Bride Was Really a Changeling. Which, again, I'm sure you can guess what the subject matter was for that. And for that one, I actually got a hold of Cluttershy, who's a friend of mine, and we did the two different vocal parts on that. He sang the main bit, I did the harmonies, and then I just did the panning on them in much the same way as you would have found on the original Simon and Garfunkel songs. So you have a wee bit more of them in either channel. And the end result I absolutely loved. It sounded very close to what they'd done, so I was very happy with that, and that was exactly what I'd been aiming for.
Have you thought about playing with sort of the really present vocal harmonies that Simon and Garfunkel does?
I have. I would like to know. I mean, it's a learning process. It's a matter of trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, if someone does know how to do that, then I'd certainly like to hear a few pointers from them. But yeah, I would like to do that kind of thing. A few other influences. I would definitely list Ralph McTell in there somewhere, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if you have no idea who he is.
I don't feel bad.
Educate us.
Yeah.
Educate us. Yeah.
He hasn't had much exposure outside of the UK, but he has done some songs that are very well known. If you've ever heard the song Streets of London, that was his.
That's where I recognize that name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. He's definitely an influence. And I would say to some extent Johnny Cash as well. I like his straightforward blasting away chords with the nice deep voice accompanying it, because, well, obviously that suits me rather well too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just taking things a little bit away from music for a moment so that people can get to know you better. This is just something I'm curious about because I work conventions. You used to work for Buck, right?
Not quite right.
Not quite right?
Yeah, I didn't work for them as such. However, I am good friends with Saturn, and he was formerly the convention chairman.
Okay.
And, well, actually, no, I suppose to some extent it still is right, because although I'm not directly involved in the convention itself, the actual event, I do run the Tumblr for the convention mascot, which is, she's called Britannia, and the Tumblr is Ask Britannia. I am in charge of that. So yes, I suppose in an indirect fashion I work for them, but it's not a case of working directly for them in terms of the actual event itself.
Well, no, that's still technically working for the convention. I mean, I head up public relations for BronyCon, and we have people that run our Ask Tumblrs, and that's a very important part of the convention running aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I suppose so.
that mascot has almost made me want to just go to the convention.
Who, Britannia?
Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear that. That means she's doing her job.
Yeah.
Hey. No, she is adorable, though.
She is.
Have you performed at many conventions?
Only Buck so far. I would like to go to other conventions. I had said last year, I was like, I want to go to BronyCon next year, and last year I was actually in a position where I could have done that. But unfortunately, I'm not employed at the moment, so I don't have any capital for doing that.
Makes it difficult, yeah.
does make it somewhat difficult. I mean, I've given some thought to maybe looking into maybe doing like a Kickstarter or whatever, a whole Get Sketchy to BronyCon thing, but I'm not sure how many people would be interested in that and whether it would honestly be worth my while. So I've been reluctant to do something like that. But the only other con that I could possibly have gotten to that's within range of me would, of course, be Galacon. But the thing with that is that the past few times it's been on, one, I haven't had enough money to get there, and two, part of the reason why I haven't had the money to get there is because it's been so close to Buck. I mean, last year, Galacon was on, I think, only about 2 or 3 weeks before Buck was. And having to choose between the two, obviously, Buck came top because, one, I was already involved with that and was going to be a guest there, and two, it was easier to get to because it's in the same country. So,
well, have you heard of Crystal Fair Con in Helsinki?
Yes, I have. That would be an interesting one as well. But again, it's a case of distance. And as I said, the major one I would like to get to at the moment is BronyCon, because it would be nice to go to the US again, and it would also be great to meet up with assorted folk that I've only ever known online, to actually meet up with them in person. I would love to do that. I mean, I've not met most of the Everfree crew, even though I've known them for the better part of like 3 years now. So,
yeah.
The alternative being, of course, to convince them to get their butts over here, because, there's a funny thing. Quick aside here, right? A funny thing that Acoustic Brony told me, because I chat with Ed and Jimmy every so often, once in a blue moon, and we were talking with them about, we were saying, in fact, yeah, this was actually after last year's Buck, when we were just hanging out with Saturn, and Ed was like, he said, we keep on getting Amanda Pony and Mike and people saying to us, so are you going to be coming over to BronyCon again? And I said, and what we've been saying to them is, screw you guys, we've been over to the US twice and you guys haven't come over here at all. When are you going to get your asses over here? And he goes, he said, and it's slowly working. He said, we're slowly guilt tripping them, because he said, when we say stuff like that, they're like, oh wow, you're right. Huh. He's like, so, fingers crossed they'll come next year.
That's awesome.
Well, hey, I mean, if I can afford it, I would love to get out to Buck sometime.
Yeah, that
same
seems
here.
like totally.
Yeah, I never been to England. I would actually love to go there.
I've got a couple friends I know over there that I'd like to meet.
I love football and I love their pubs, so there we go.
Another thing I just remembered con-wise, actually, now that you mention it, there's one coming up that it's still being organised, but it's coming together quite well, is Brony Scot, which is basically, as the name suggests, it's going to be a Brony convention in Scotland. They're going to be having that in Edinburgh. For obvious reasons, that's something I'm very interested in performing at, and I have talked to their guest managers, and we've been speaking about doing that, so I might be performing at that as well, if that gets off the ground.
So, oh my god, you have a show on Everfree Network. I've always wanted a show on Everfree Network. What's it like being on Everfree Network?
It's fun. I mean, I get to hang out with some interesting people here and there, and of course, I also get the considerable useful privilege of being associated with a site that's quite well known in the community, one of the best known ones, and benefiting from that and seeing quite a lot of people tuning into my show. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I don't know about that. It would.
What's it like having fans that don't want to zap you?
Oh dear.
I wish I knew.
I don't know. I mean, I bet some of them would like to. So
Zap Sketchy.
Zap Sketchy.
So do we need to get a Zap Sketchy dinky butt command?
I don't think we need to go quite that far.
Oh.
Maybe just for this episode.
But it's nice having people that regularly tune in and and are eager to see you perform and stuff. It is really, really good to have that sort of thing. It's very encouraging for a performing artist to have that, because nothing encourages someone more if they're a musician or a performer or whatever than getting good feedback from it. Actually having people eager to see them come on and coming back week after week saying, yeah, we really love this. It's it's a big confidence builder. It's a wonderful thing to have.
It's been one of the most fantastic things about us doing this show too, is just hearing the feedback from people and hearing people get excited when we're doing live episodes and showcasing new music, and when we do our silly April Fool's thing, or when we're going to do our next live episode. Like, just the feedback that we have from people is just so amazing.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's gotten a little bit popular over the past few
Makes
months.
me feel all warm and fuzzy
quite
inside.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
And Forrest, wouldn't you say that this show actually helped you bring you back a little bit to the fandom?
It has, yeah, because it started at a time where I was kind of sort of drawn back from the fandom a little bit and just sort of kind of introspective, and it's really brought me back into, even more than that, this show has really broadened my musical horizons, and I've learned so much about like metal and electronic music in the process of doing this. Like, I've learned so much in doing the 18 episodes so far, that it's phenomenal, and I love learning stuff. And it's I have no words. It's literally like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that goes for all of us.
It is.
Forrest, I could cry right now with you saying that you love learning about metal.
I do. I love learning about all genres. But speaking of music in general, I'm going to pass things off to Snowblitz.
Actually, really, really quick, let's just mention quickly this. And this show that we are talking about by Sketchy Sounds comes on at 3 o'clock Central on Everfree Network Thursdays.
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay, this next song is a song of two sisters featuring Feather. You're listening to Elements of Harmony on Everfree Network.
Come walk with me as the sun goes to bed, on the shore as the clouds fade to red. Hear my song of two ponies, my sister and me. I brought the day, she in turn brought the night. For all I knew, everything was alright. But then that day came when I lost my one best friend. As day turned to evening, the sun left the sky, with darkness in her heart. She raised the moon to light. She could not see reason, swore upon the world an everlasting night. For her and our people, I had to do the only thing that was right. She was gone, but the world just moved on. Look to me to raise both moon and sun. Time made her name just a memory to everyone but me. Years went by, but my heart remained strong. She came back with fury, and I rose again. So I vengeance upon me, found the world would see a night without an end. Yet 6 fearless ponies rose up to bring the tale to an end. United in friendship, they stood as one, and the sun rose again. On that day my little sister came home. I wept aloud for I no longer was alone. I heard her voice say so sweetly, big sister, please don't cry. So won't you come as the moon rises high? Share my song, raise your voice to the sky. Laugh and dance and be glad, for the day will dawn anew, and the sun will shine on you, and the sun will shine on you.
So that was A Song of Two Sisters featuring Feather, done by our guest Sketchy Sounds, and we're moving into the tech talk, and we're going to do something interesting for the tech talk today, or at least something that I think is interesting. But we're going to discuss the elements of doing a music show.
Oh,
It's gonna be music show. Music show.
Since
You get a
Just gonna say
mic
that
and
out loud.
record it
Music
and you
show.
put it up on the internet, hope
And
people
you
like
deal
it.
with
Done.
crazy people. Lots of crazy people.
But yes, since both our guest and ourselves obviously do music shows, we figured we kind of discuss that whole thing and, blah, blah. So to start off, Sketchy, tell us a little bit about how you initially were sort of planning your show and kind of how you figured the logistics out so far as producing a show about music every week.
Well, I'll be honest. It's been quite a long process of trial and error. When I initially started out, when it was just me streaming every so often whenever I felt like it, playing music, the way that I did it, I was originally using just Flash Media Encoder and a webcam and the aforementioned crappy USB condenser mic. It did the job. The quality was not fantastic, and there were very few bonuses to it. I couldn't, for example, if I'd wanted to put text on screen or whatever, I couldn't. Likewise, there were the limitations of the technology in terms of bit rates and so forth. So when I started out, it was a very, very primitive setup I was making use of. As time went on, at one point I started using Manycam, which that was good, but it also had its drawbacks. So as time went on and I got my hands on better equipment, I went from using a USB condenser mic to the audio interface I mentioned before. Now, when I got my hands on that, I came to the realization that, there was perhaps more I could do with it. Because one of the things I'd wanted to do was to be able to use filters and effects on my guitar and perhaps do something for my voice and improve the quality, cut out some background noise. So I started making use of a DAW for that. The one I made use of and that I still use is Reaper. But yeah, so things progressed. I ended up with a better interface. But one of the major things that happened that also greatly improved the quality of the show was that some bright spark, I can't remember the guy's name, but he developed a piece of software called Open Broadcaster software. And if you are ever planning on streaming or doing a live broadcast show, I strongly recommend picking it up. It's pretty much the best thing that's ever been made for people who do streaming shows, because it has a lot of the functionality and features that you'd find in stuff like XSplit, which is widely regarded as one of the better things out there.
Which is what we currently use for our live broadcasts, yeah.
Big difference, OBS is completely free, and it's being actively developed. And it will do pretty much everything that XSplit does, and do it better and with less memory and CPU overhead.
All right, now to bring things back to the interface really quickly, when you talked about the greatness about upgrading that, one thing I love about a good interface like a Focusrite, and before this I had a Line 6 UX2, is monitoring through the interface itself, where it does all the processing before it sends that signal to the computer.
Yes.
That makes a huge difference in latency and just really helps a lot.
Yeah. Mine, I don't think it actually does that.
Really?
Or at least it doesn't do all of it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there are no plugins for it.
You're gonna get a dry mix through that, but
oh yeah, I do get a dry mix. I can also get a post-processed mix, and here's the thing: the driver for this audio interface is so well written that depending on how much other stuff I have going, I can set the latency all the way down to about maybe 3 milliseconds, and I don't get any crackles or latency or anything.
Wow.
It's a really, really well put together product.
It's kind of similar to the stuff that I use too. Like for my audio interface, I use an MBox 2 for Pro Tools. And obviously Pro Tools uses their hardware quite strongly for their real-time audio suite, the plugins that they use, which actually kind of sucks because I can't use VSTs, which I don't know if I know the acronym, what the acronym actually stands for, but VSTs are a very common plugin.
Virtual Studio Tool, I think.
Virtual Studio Tool. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, VSTs are used quite commonly in most audio software in order to, be your type of plugins. So any of your compressors, your reverbs, your anything, expanders, all sorts of things, anything that basically modifies an audio track. But Pro Tools uses something called RTAS, Real-Time Audio Suite.
Oh yeah.
Which basically pipes stuff through the MBox interface in order to process it to save on CPU power. But in addition to that, I also have a Focusrite preamp, which is what I pipe my microphone to, through. And it has a lot of very powerful processing built into it. It's not processing in like the digital sense, but in the analog sense, absolutely. It has a very awesome expander on it and a really good compressor. So it's without my preamp, my mic would not sound good at all.
Yeah, without the preamp, you would hear a lot of
yeah.
Right, and actually what I'm using for my preamp is a TC Helicon voice tone correct. It's a live stage stomp box.
Perhaps I misunderstood slightly when you said processing. I mean,
yeah, I didn't mean like all the effects and stuff, but there is like digital audio converters and stuff going on inside of the interface.
Ah, right. Well, if that's what you're about, then yes, this interface does have a lot of that. I mean, the 8i6 has 2 Focusrite mic preamps built into it. I mean, Focusrite built their reputation on their mic preamps. So, yeah, there's 2 of those built into it. There's quite a bit of interesting stuff goes on inside it as well. And one of the things it does, it works in tandem with the supplied software, the mix control. Basically what that does is it allows you to route the audio that's going from various input sources to any of the outputs. So say, for example, I want to hear the mortar mix, or rather, I want to hear the mix as it sounds coming out of my DAW. I can do that, but say, for example, that I had, say, like some mortar speakers plugged in, and I wanted the dry mix out of that. I can also do that. Or say, for example, I had several different things plugged into the line outputs, like say if it was a whole load of sets of different headphones, and I wanted to give each of them a different mix with like varying levels of like the DAW mix and maybe the dry mix of, say, a vocalist or a drummer or a singer or whatever, if I had one. I can do that too. It's a very powerful bit of software it has, and very, very useful functionality it has inside it. I mean, it took me ages to get my head around it. I only recently just figured out how to make it so that I could do what I'm doing now, which is that I've got the DAW mix coming out of one of the, well, out of a pair of the line outputs at the back, and actually going back into a sound card I have inside my computer. And then what you're hearing is the line input from that.
Yeah. It's sort of the same way I run our shows too. Is I actually have a physical analog mixer that I basically pipe everything into, and then I just kind of mix between the Skype vocals and the actual sound that I'm piping through, and then it all goes back into my M Audio sound card, which then gets piped through to everybody. Yeah,
it's pretty much the same as that. I did that solely so that I could get rid of any virtual audio cable stuff that I was using, because as useful as virtual audio cable is, it's a lot of CPU overhead and it introduces a lot of latency. I was like, I have had it with this. So I decided on the off chance to give a try of making use of the line input on the sound card I've got inside my computer. I mean, the sound card I've got in there is just like it's a creative sound blaster. It's nothing particularly special, but it does do the job quite well, and it has, no ground noise on it. So I was just like, right, I'll try plugging the line outs on the back of the interface into the line in on the sound card. We'll see how that goes. And as it happened, it went very, very well, as you can plainly hear.
I guess we're down to our last question. I know we could probably continue on this conversation for a while, which we probably will for after. As someone who also does a music show, and you also do music and a fair other things, what advice do you have to those who also wish to follow in your footsteps?
Get out there and do it would be the main thing. Do not be afraid to try. Do not be afraid to fail, as it were. Do not be afraid to make a massive cock up of it. If you honestly want to try, you honestly want to go ahead and do it, then go ahead and do it and have fun doing it. And also, very importantly, don't base your perceived success, as it were, on the number of people you get listening in, or the number of subscribers you get, or anything like that. Because really, the only thing that matters in any creative field is, are you having fun doing it? Do you know your purpose for doing what you're doing? As long as you have those two things, as long as you know why you're doing it, as long as you're enjoying yourself doing it, then you don't ever need to stop.
Thank you for coming on, Sketchy.
Thanks for being here.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a lot of great talk, and this has been one of the most technical tech talks, I think. But
yeah, can I just say that I'm so glad that all of you guys deal with that other stuff, because everything is pretty much right over my head. I was just like, digital cables?
Yeah.
How? Okay.
Digital audio converters.
No, they said something about
virtual audio cables is, I think, what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyways.
Yeah.
This week, coming up on Everfree, on Wednesday, KP&Y at 7 p.m., and Into the Spotlight at 9 p.m. On Thursday, we have our guest, Sketchy Sounds, at 3 p.m. All times are in Central. Until next time, this is
Starlight Ironhoof,
6-string,
4-string,
King Candy,
and Zeta Prime. Good enough!
This moment, time itself has stopped. Early morning, I still feel a little sore. Emotions bubbling over from long years before. I can feel the cold stone work through my shoes. There must be something to be said. Will you refuse? The sunlight filters in, and there's a lump inside my throat.